Hello, hello, hello. I am Elaine the Pain, and welcome back to Elaine's Inner Circle. So, Carnival is coming up, and everyone kind of knows the history, but no one really kind of knows the story behind what spurred or what was the catalyst in terms of Notting Hill Carnival. And I want to introduce you to the story of Kelso Cochrane, a young man who was beaten to death, right? And he passed away, and this sparked so much outrage and so much. It kind of, racism was rampant back then, but everyone was angry. And, the story of Kelso Cochrane is such a deep one. It just shows the colonial and racist roots of this country. And it's really, really sad. So this is a serious topic today, but I am going to read an article. It's going to be a long one, but I really do want you to be up and educated about why Notting Hill takes place. It's not about the drinking and the gyrating and all of those sorts of things. No, it wasn't even really about, oh, we just need to celebrate our culture. No, it was about a young man who migrated to Britain, who wanted to live an amazing life, and was told that Britain was the motherland, and to come here and to be unalived, basically it just shows that our black bodies to them aren't worth a damn. So let me just get up the story here. So this is Kelso Cochrane. He looks so handsome, and it's just such a shame that we have to be martyred for them to actually do something. So I'm going to read. So shout out to this website. It's called the 20th and 21st Century Migrations, and it's called The Murdering Notting Hill. And basically, it just goes down, the activism, colonialism, discrimination, marriages, policing, remigration, all of those sorts of things. But this story is particularly about Kelso Cochrane, and I don't think a lot of people know his story. So grab your tea, your biscuits, whatever it is, because I really do want this to sink into your brain. So Kelso Cochrane. This was in excuse me, Notting Hill, London, May 17th, 1959, just after midnight. Having his finger, which he had broken at work, replastered at a local hospital, Kelso Cochrane was walking home. He was quite near to the house in which he shared a room with his partner Olivia, when a gang of white youths surrounded him. They called him many insulting names, punched, pushed, thumped, and stabbed him. When he collapsed, they ran away. Two black men walking nearby rushed over. A taxi stopped. Cochrane was picked up and put in a cab, but by the time they reached the nearby hospital, he had stopped breathing. Someone called a reporter at the Sunday Express and said 3 white youths has just stabbed a darkie named Cochrane. So we're just going to go into the migration of Kelso Cochrane, right? So why was 32-year-old, oh, he was my age as well. Okay. Why was 32-year-old Kelso Cochrane in London? He was born in Antigua, an island in the Caribbean colonized by Britain. For much of its history, Antigua had a plantation economy that relied on the labor of enslaved Africans. When Britain abolished slavery in 1833, there were about 29,000 men and women of African origin or descent on the island. While plantation owners were being paid by the British government for their loss of slaves, remember, they only just stopped paying them in 2015, right? The freed slaves themselves received absolutely nothing. As on most of the islands in the Caribbean, almost all land was devoted to plantations, and there was nothing much the newly emancipated slaves could do other than accept plantation-based work. No matter how low the wage, there were no factories or other industries to work in, as Britain did not permit manufacturing in any of its colonies. That is extremely interesting. That is extremely interesting. They had no factories in their colonies. Wow. As a result, many West Indians, people from the English-speaking Caribbean, began to look for work in other parts of the world. Some migrated to South America mainland. Many went to Panama to labor on the new railways there, and then to assist in the building of the Panama Canal. Listen, I need to do a video on the Panama Canal, because a lot of black bodies were lost building that. Yo, the shit that they put us through, crazy. Most went to the US. For example, between 1901 and 1910, over 11,000 Caribbean people were admitted between 1943 and 1953. The US census listed 106,000 individuals as Caribbean born. Conditions on the island deteriorated after the war, so we're back at Antigua now. Not content with working as a carpenter with his father, who was a shipwright, Kelso migrated at the age of 19. First to another island, Dominica. After 3 years, he returned home, only to migrate again, this time to the USA, where he had 2 uncles. He married, but the marriage didn't last long, and he returned to Antigua for a few months before leaving again in July 1954, this time for what West Indies called the mother country, Britain. And it's really important for you to get into the psyche of how they indoctrinated our people back then. They taught us that England is the motherland. You give your heart, body and soul if the Queen needs you, if the royal family needs you. This is why so many Caribbean men signed up in service for World War I and World War II, because they're like, the Queen and the country needs you. And these white men would go around to parishes collecting black males, right, black men, to go and fight in the war, only for them to treat them worse off than they were. Crazy. As it had become very difficult to emigrate to the USA after World War II due to the passage of the McCarran-Walker Act in 1952, many West Indians saved money to buy their passage to Britain. Some were invited to work in the country, as many white Britons were emigrating and workers were needed. I wonder where they were emigrating to. I think probably Australia. Probably Australia. There was a wave of migration because, Britain was beat down and it was a shithole. So, the Brits didn't want to stay there. So, of course, they would migrate to English speaking countries. And I do believe Australia was one of them. Attitudes of the white British towards people with darker skin were often very negative at this time. Many discrimination ideas had grown during the era of the trade in enslaved Africans, when British people were told that Africans had no culture, no religions, no laws, and no traditions. Some Britons even believed that Africans had no languages. Colonized people in Africa and the Caribbean were largely unaware of the attitudes in Britain. And this is why whenever we speak to our grandparents, whenever we speak to our parents, and they say, we were met with so much hatred that we were not prepared for. They were not prepared for that. They are coming from a country where they haven't experienced racism. Well, they have, because obviously there's the colonizers and the overseers, but socially mingling, you are all black, right? So to come to a white country and experience racism, they were not prepared for that. They had been taught about the glories of Britain, where everyone worked for a good wage, received equal treatment, lived in a democracy, had the right to vote, and schools were available for all children. So this is what they were telling them when they said, oh, come over here and work. Your children will get schooled, you get housed, you get fed, you live a better life. This is what our parents and grandparents were being told. Unsurprisingly, Caribbean arrivals were bewildered, absolutely bewildered, and then angered by the many landlords who refused to rent to their families or cram several people into one room, charging an exorbitant price. They were also angered and disappointed by the employers who often refused to hire them, and by the colour bar in some pubs, dance halls, and many other places that led them to being refused admittance. Excuse me. Racism, racist behaviour, and campaigns against these migrants were increased by fascist organisations such as the League of Empire Loyalists, Colin Jordan's White Defence League, Oswald Mosley's Fascist Union Movement, and a branch of the Ku Klux Klan, all present in Britain at this time. Wow. White thugs known as the Teddy Boys roamed the streets at night hunting for the N-word, who they claimed were seducing their women. This is absolutely crazy. You know what? Reading this out just goes to show that this country hasn't changed. You haven't changed. You haven't moved forward. You haven't done any growth. You barely done anything. Like, it's literally history repeating itself. You just cut the head off of one of the leaders of these parties and another one grows back, aka Nigel Farage, aka Tommy. It's crazy. Fights broke out in many cities in 1958. The Notting Hill area was among the worst. 3 black men were so badly beaten they were hospitalized for weeks. Oswald Mosley's distributed a pamphlet saying, "Take action now, protect your jobs, stop coloured immigration, houses for white people." I really want to read this again to you, because this is exactly what Nigel is saying. It's not new. It's never been new. Oswald Mosley distributed pamphlets saying, "Take action now, protect your jobs now, stop coloured immigration, houses for white people, not coloured immigrants." It's the exact same thing. Hundreds of young men rampaged around the area at the end of August, smashing the windows of houses of West Indians lived in and anything owned by them, and attacking many on the streets. Some in the black community panicked and wanted to return home where they would be safe. The police were not impartial. A disproportionate number of the black people who had been attacked were arrested. And this is what I've been saying. It was never fair. Even to pit ourselves up against other communities, it was never fair. We were never going to win. So why do you keep subjecting yourselves to be with these people, to be around these people, to work for them, to have conversations with them, and they don't like you? I'm not understanding. When these things happened, if only we had the right leaders to be like, F all of this. We're building something ourselves. Not let us have a seat at the table. Oh, please, sir, open up the door. We are good blacks. We just want a seat at the table. It's crazy. Everything that we're going through now, this is that. How can you arrest victims? So, who killed Kelso Cochrane? Was Kelso Cochrane fearful on his way home alone late at night? Though a number of people were likely to have seen his murder from their windows as the street was lined with terraced housing, very few reported it to the police. This could have been as much a result of their fear of reprisal from the Teddy Boys as their lack of interest in the murder of a black man. However, some witnesses did give the names of the perpetrators to the police. 2 men were arrested, held overnight, and then released without any charges. It's typical. It's absolutely typical. Many local organisations were infuriated, and this is where Claudia Jones comes in. The Trinidad-born editor of the West Indian Gazette, who had been the main organiser of the first London Carnival held in St Pancras Town Hall, directed her attention to the need for a campaign against the treatment of all non-white people in Britain. Hold on, wait. So does that mean that Kelso Cochrane was not the catalyst as to why we have Carnival? Because it says many local organisations were infuriated. Claudia Jones, the Trinidad-born editor of the West Indian Gazette, who had been the main. Oh, okay. Oh, so they're just saying who she is. Okay. Claudia, the CPPA, and other groups formed the Interracial Friendship Coordinating Council, whose central executive committee was all women. Love that. They sponsored a memorial meeting for Cochrane. 40 organizations of the 3 major political parties sent representatives. Boom! This is how you do it. This is how you get it done. 3 political organizations that have the interest of black people alone. Right? They sent representatives out there. They organised a very public funeral. About 1,000 people attended, including the Kensington mayor and the premier of West Indies Federation. I don't know who that is. Maybe it's the Borough. I don't know. A fund was set up for Kelso's mother in Antigua, whom he had financially been supporting. The council sent a letter to the Prime Minister asking for a law to make incitement to racial violence illegal and emphasising that coloured citizens of the UK have lost confidence in the ability of the law enforcement agencies to protect them. Instead of agreeing to this, the government gave permission for the White Defence League to hold a meeting in Trafalgar Square. Wow. They really didn't give a damn. They really didn't give a damn. This is crazy. Then the council met with some Home officials asking again for this law, and for the trebling of police in the Notting Hill area. According to some of those attending, they also asked for the removal of policemen with a known racial bias. On the 1st of June, they held a vigil outside 10 Downing Street to express a lack of confidence in the arrangements for the security of coloured people. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So apparently these are lords on here, and basically they're just giving their take on whether or not they should strengthen up the Race Relations Act. I'm not going to read all of this because it's poppycock, to be honest, and you know it's just how they speak in Parliament. But this comes down to our Stephen Lawrence connection, because it says the murder of Kelso Cochrane was neither the first nor the last murder of a black person merely because of the colour of his or her skin. The murder of Stephen Lawrence in 1993 mirrors that of Kelso Cochrane in 1959. Stephen's murderers, like Kelso's, were reported to the police. Again, no one was charged. The massive campaign led by Stephen's parents and their many supporters resulted in the government appointing Sir William Macpherson to chair an inquiry in 1997. His report, published in 1999, accused the Metropolitan Police of institutional racism, and its recommendations included strengthening the Race Relations Act to try and clamp down on discrimination. The report was discussed in the House of Lords, and basically this is what who's it, Lord Delakia had to say. I mean, to be honest, guys, it's bittersweet. It's, well, not really bittersweet, but I just feel like nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. I don't think it's ever going to change. And why are we fitting a square peg into a round hole? I just want to show you a little snippet of Kelso Cochrane's funeral. It looked very full. It looked very packed. And that says something about, you know, how effective these organizations were. There's no audio, there's no sound, but you know, there were a lot of people there. I was surprised that there's a lot of white people there, actually, but there's a lot of white people there. But it's great because, you know, they're paying their respects to someone who has been unalived in their community, and they all know who did it, and they all know it was wrong. And, you know, it's because of the dirty, stinking police that they just can't, you know, bring them to justice because they won't investigate it, right? Literally. Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you, they tried to chalk up Kelso's murder as basically like a robbery or something like that, when, you know, Kelso wasn't wealthy like that. So what did he have to rob? So tragic. So tragic. But the community turned out and they came together. It's nice to see that. It's really lovely to see that. Yeah. And I'm glad they gave him the respect that he deserves. It really is bittersweet. And this is the thing, look how many people are going to walk behind the procession. There was literally hundreds of people walking behind the procession. it's so heartwarming to see that a particular community can come together for their people. It really is lovely to see. I'm just going to stop it there. Yeah, I'm just going to stop it there.